off of a 1-1 against Ballistics. But that second loss they took there, that was a bit of a tough one to take. It was very one-sided. We had a sub 8-minute game, if I'm not mistaken. It was very, very short, and it was a Sylvanas push, and that's got to be a little bit demoralizing going into their final match of the evening.
It is demoralizing, but I'm sure Dignitas is going to be able to bounce back from this. They are a very experienced team, one of the most experienced on the world stage of any team in Heroes of the Storm. They've been around a long time as a team, and I'm sure they know how to recover, even from devastating losses.
I would say many would consider them the favorites against this team. Zero, we saw Zero playing earlier today. Some very good play we saw out of this team already, and this is a team that has members that have played for multiple teams throughout the Chinese scene. Shifting from team to team, it's a very solid roster. Most argue more solid than most of our other Chinese teams. Is part of the reason why they are here. And they did go further than E-Star did. E-Star / SPT, whichever way you want to call that hybrid roster from BlizzCon. They did have more success at our most recent international competition of BlizzCon. So this is going to be a great series to close out the night because I do feel like it could go 1-1. I don't think it's going to go 2-0 either way, to be honest. I feel like it's going to be a pretty close series.
It does feel like it will be a close series, especially if Zero irons out some of the issues they had earlier today against Miracle specifically. But looking at the map pick here, guys, Zero has banned Infernal Shrines, Dignitas banning Warhead Junction, don't want to deal with that. And then Zero chose Sky Temple as their first map. Haven't seen too much of that one, or Tomb of the Spider Queen that Dignitas picked.
Yeah, Dignitas being a little bit of a comfort pick there on that Tomb of the Spider Queen. It's a European favorite. We've seen it a lot in Asia as well, but in Europe it's one of the most popular maps, kind of like Infernal Shrines here in Asia. And I guess you could say really Infernal Shrines kind of globally become the most popular map in Heroes of the Storm for competitive. I do think this map draft is pretty standard. I think it's not really a surprise that teams are going to start picking Sky Temple against Western teams because the late game of the Western teams you've seen in this tournament so far, Dignitas and Astral Authority, has looked pretty weak at times. We've seen big mistakes going into those core calls and those keeps.
Yeah, and Dignitas has definitely looked like they've struggled to close out a game or two, and we'll have to see if they can overcome that difficulty. Now, they do get first ban, first pick here on Sky Temple, as Wolf mentioned, and we'll have to see how they go about this drafting phase. The last draft they had against Ballistics was quite unusual, with Malfurion and EC both making it to the 2-3 slot of first pick, which is really strange. Now, in this game, Dahaka, actually the first ban from Dignitas, already focusing on those globals that we know have been so powerful this tournament.
This does mean that with Dahaka banned, this ban here from Zero is kind of a choice as to whether or not they'll allow ETC or Malfurion to be first picked from Dignitas. When given the opportunity, though, against Ballistics in Game 2 of their very last match, Dignitas decided not to take either in favor of that Tassadar pick. It's going to be the Illidan ban, so this means that Dignitas will actually have the choice to pick of the two if they decide to. And Vala is still on the table here as well. It's been a very solid first pick because it's so flexible. You have so many things you could do with it, and we've seen a lot of teams in this situation, rather than choosing the ETC, going for the damage and flexibility that Vala provides. So I'd say you're really looking between those two. Malfurion is something we could see here, but Dignitas has not really been prioritizing him as much.
Which is a little surprising considering Bakery is very good at that Malfurion, but none of those three. Actually, the choices here bucking tradition a little bit, since Brightwing has been high priority, but historically not over ETC and Malfurion.
Yeah, and this is a pick that I would really be giving 2 thumbs up to if it were against Ballistics, because Ballistics has really shown a ton of priority on this hero. Swoy's said multiple times he thinks Brightwing is basically OP. It's one of his favorite supports to play, and they actually do such a big commitment to the global presence in their drafting. Dignitas already taken away Dahaka, the Brightwing first pick. Makes it feel like they're playing against Ballistics here. ETC left unlocked here, goes to 0, and they will likely pick up, I would say, Vala here instead, because she's not necessarily, Malfurion's not necessarily going to be banned away from them, so they don't have to prioritize him as highly, with Brightwing being first picked on the side of Dignitas.
I agree, absolutely. I think picking up the Vala here would round up your composition very well. Alternatively, maybe the Tastar's been high priority, but just the Vala would be so solid. And then Dignitas, I can't help but wonder, is the... Ooh, Tychus, that's also a good choice, another good range damage. A little surprising. I'm sure Dignitas will be pretty happy to take the Vala here. I know they really like that hero, they've been prioritizing it a lot, but as you mentioned, the Malfurion obviously not a choice. I wonder if the Brightwing is a nod to just how powerful Zeratul is. We saw Dignitas use him in the last match on Dragonshire, which they won, and Zeratul was a key part of that. And I can't help but think Brightwing plus Zeratul is very good.
Definitely so. We'll see if they decide to prioritize that here on Sky Temple. One of the reasons why Asian teams choose Zeratul on this map, as we see Falstad actually coming again, so Dignitas is going all in on the globals right now, while also denying Dahako, so they're kind of, I guess you could say, monopolizing the globals. One of the reasons why we see Zeratul on this map sometimes is to deny a solo laner or a solo pusher, for example, like Falstad or Sylvanas. The same way that Tracer is sometimes used on this map for the same reason. And Dignitas doesn't really use Zeratul always that way. They use him as more of a team fight impact hero, and obviously with the Brightwing he can become quite strong. I don't think they're going to take him here. They might even consider taking Johanna. Oh, well, they do it. They do commit to it.
They do commit to that Zeratul. That is interesting. Not as early as some we've seen in that first pick slot, but still before the second ban phase. They don't want to let that slip out of their grasp. Of course, that does mean they are lacking on the warrior front, which could be a problem moving into the last few picks of this draft, especially if Zero decides to target those with bans or perhaps pick an additional one in their third, fourth slot.
I don't think Zero was ever really going to consider running Zeratul with this comp. It's definitely a possibility, and that's something that we've seen Korean teams do a lot, especially when you have Brightwing Falstad like this early. Even also against the Sylvanas I was mentioning before. But this is what I was worried about, is the Johanna ban that you just described, because of this double damage kind of drafting we're seeing from Dignitas, where they already show ranged and melee, leave the warrior kind of bannable here. ETC, since he was first picked by Zero, means that they can just take this away. It has no detriment to them. And now suddenly Dignitas is going to have to play a little bit of a different and perhaps less comfortable warrior here.
Speaking of less comfortable warriors, we have not seen very many teams playing Zarya, but we saw a ban from Zarya actually in the last match of Dignitas, and I can't help but wonder if that is also a potential. I think Zarya plus another warrior would be a good way to make up for the fact that they're a little light on healing right now, but also need a front line. Zarya kind of that middle ground. Alternatively, Tyrael, of course, is always excellent, but I'm not sure it's going to make it back to Dignitas' picks.
Sure, and given what we have selected here, obviously Bakery will be playing Brightwing, but we have seen Snitch play some very good Falstad, and Mene is usually the Zarya player. So definitely a possibility with who's available left on, players left for the draft picks. So something to keep in mind as we go forward. Zero here, looking for the Malfurion. Pretty easy choice, since he's actually somehow made it through both bans and is in the secondary pick phase here for Zero. That's going to just reset their pick time, their time pool, and they do have a lot of choices here. With Tassadar banned, it's hard to grab a strong melee assassin with just Malfurion, because Malfurion does do sustained healing, but his burst healing is non-existent essentially, so it's hard to actually keep someone alive here unless they wanted to grab, say a Zarya. Zul is one melee here that's not a melee assassin that you could put on that slot.
Zul is very strange. We have not seen him make too many appearances at this event. I was really expecting something more like a Tyrael, and then you have a well-rounded four-man. You can get that fifth pick to just counter whatever Dignitas does go for, which does end up being that Zarya I was talking about, Zarya Muradin, the rotation there, and that provides all of the frontline that Dignitas needed. It rounds out their defensive capabilities, because I think Zarya really does play a nice combination between being tanky, having the potential for damage output, but also a little bit supporty, so that Zeratul won't have to be as scared, and I really like that rotation from them.
Well, with the Leoric last pick here coming out 4-0, I don't feel like they have a lot of late game, and I don't feel like they have a lot of damage. With Tychus really being the only source of consistent range damage in their draft, I feel like they're going to try to snowball this game with Zul. They're going to try to get an early lead. They're going to try to get the first temple phase, or the first bottom temple phase to get 10 and push really, really hard. And if they can do that, they can just kind of push this game, to the brink of keeps early on, try to snowball that lead. I think overall, though, I have to say Dignitas' comp is way better. It's way more standard, and it's so much more flexible. You can do a lot of things with this comp. You can build it a lot of ways. Whereas what I'm seeing from Zero here feels pretty all in on early damage.
I agree. And if you're looking at the Zul, he wants to get a lead, he wants to be split pressuring, but the flip side of that is Dignitas has Zeratul Brightwing to always find him on the map, pick him out, and he cannot survive a Zeratul Brightwing gank. He's just not tanky enough, not survivable enough, has no mobility. So anytime he's split on the map away from his team, pushing those forts, you can easily rotate Zeratul away from the team fight, and then Brightwing TP's in, suddenly that's a kill, and you lose all of the momentum that you've built up.
And you can't really rotate with them. We'll talk a little bit more about it, guys, as we get into this very first game on Sky Temple.
Here on the blue side of Sky Temple, we have Dignitas with Athero playing Zeratul, Bakery on Brightwing, Mene playing his Zarya, JPL on Murden, and Snitch with Falstad.
And on the opposite side of things here, our Chinese team is Zero, Melody C on Zul, M on Leoric Gemini bringing up the Malfurion, SK on Tychus, and 6 playing ETC. ETC is obviously also a very powerful hero in the early game. He does have that very strong CC, allows him to pass through heroes and really lock them down and isolate them. So
it's really scary, actually, how much crowd control Zero has. Now that I look at this at the level 1, ETC stun into Malf roots and Zul roots is an insane amount of CC, and you have to be so scared of that if you are Dignitas. Even Zarya or Murden probably can't survive that combo.
This is really interesting. We'll make a lot of jokes about Chinese Bush meta. This is, I feel, when I saw it initially, it felt more defensive, but now it really looks like they're trying to bait Snitch into a mistake. Now, Snitch is known oftentimes for getting caught out of position against things like this, but he's being very careful right now and knows exactly what's going on. You can hide things like this, but it doesn't usually normally get very much success. Melody C being jumped on here will be able to shield himself up. One of the things I was going to mention right before we jumped into game is that Zul can have a 4-man rotation with him to pressure and then leave the lane alone. The problem with doing that on Sky Temple is the map is very large. It's very difficult to rotate between lanes, and with the mount changes that happened a few patches ago, it's much tougher to actually make that type of rotation.
It is, and Sky Temple with the distance between lane, it's an okay strategy, but it doesn't tend to get you ahead, right? When you pick that Zul, a lot of teams think Zul is not that great in the actual team fighting phase, especially in the late game. So it's something where they're banking on getting ahead, and they have a ton of CC and kill pressure, but Sky Temple is not the map where Zul has that enormous impact typically.
We do see a slightly late commitment here from Dignitas to this middle temple, which has actually caused them to lose quite a bit of shots on both. Big roots going down here. This is that CC you were talking about. JPL does get very low, but he is going to be able to heal up very quickly with his second wind. Athero will blink away, but Zero's M is waiting for him and will secure the kill. Nice prediction there of movement, and Dignitas won't be able to even counter pressure here. He'll have to back off. And if this entire temple is won without anything happening at the top temple, Zero could potentially get 2 shots worth of temples, while also having Zul down here to pressure. It's a pretty big win, but this is what you expect with this comp in the early game.
This early game composition is excellent, and I have to say that was a great rotation from M, just being there right on time for the Zeratul teleport. It doesn't seem like Zero is interested in contesting top temple, though. They waited a long time to rotate up. They're leaving Tychus in middle, so right now Dignitas has 2 globals on the other side of the map, so that could help them if Zero commits here. It's just, it takes Falstad a long time to actually get to top since his global doesn't go all the way across the map, especially on a tall one like this. So Zero's trying to take advantage of that and does force the Brightwing phase shift in, but no kill just yet.
No kill, and Dignitas doesn't have control of this. Big stun going down onto M, but of course he can just go ahead and Wraith Walk away. The big win here, though, is forcing the two-man rotation. Bakery teleports in first, and you see Snitch fly up. This means Melody C has 2 lanes worth of pressure and is getting extra value. Looks like Snitch will get caught here as well. That's the CC you were referring to, and Zero will secure the final shots on this temple. Big wins in every way here for the Chinese team. And this is what they're looking to accomplish with this composition. So far, the plan is a go. It's working out exactly as they, envisioned it when they were building this composition.
Full speed ahead, Wolf, and Dignitas cannot afford to continue making these mistakes. They've missed so much experience between that middle and bottom lane, plus giving up kills at the same time. You can't do that. If you're going to be missing experience to pull extra people, you need to win the map objective and get your own kills, not give them away, and that puts Dignitas in a tough spot this early. You can see that middle fort almost dead for Dignitas, which means Zero can easily get an experience advantage and potentially have level 10 for the second temple phase in the bottom side of the map.
Very risky situation here for Zero. He does use his Drain Hope to try to turn that fight around, but there's no rotation up because JPL stops that, coming in there, stopping the mount up there, so ends up being a really good trade. This map obviously is quite large, and we do see even in the commitment to scouting drone for Malfurion with the changes to revealing cloaked heroes with that. It is quite powerful against Zeratul, so Athero not going to be able to find as much gank pressure as he would like to with well-placed scouting drones. We've seen a few of them already in this game. I'd like to even see more, to be honest. But I like that choice.
That
and
is so much damage
down
on
onto Athero, and JPL will get caught as well. Snitch comes in. Very risky fly in there. If they had turned on him, he might have actually gotten blown up. He does get the barrel roll away. But Leoric is getting extra soak top, and this is going to be a very fast level 10 for Zero. This composition for them is really hitting all the marks. I mean, they are getting kills that they shouldn't be getting, really. It's kind of on Dignitas to avoid that. And they're getting lane pressure in all 3 lanes and soaking so much as Leoric just goes up top, and finally JPL goes up to deal with that, but not before Zero is 2/3 the way to 10 at level 9.
If the story of drafts in this event has been global prioritization, then the story of the actual gameplay has been teams forcing their opponents to misuse their globals and waste them and spend them going to areas they can't get any advantage, and I feel like that's happening to Dignitas right now. Zero is playing this an absolutely perfect textbook example of how you pressure your opponent in a certain area to pull the globals, but don't overextend so the globals can't actually punish you, and now Zero has taken an enormous advantage because of that. They were able to destroy the bottom fort without even needing that second temple, and that puts them so far ahead on experience, map control, and structure life.
We do see Stage Dive as well, which is going to give a global presence to Zero that they don't have pre-10, so that's going to be really nice for them to have as well. They can use that to do things like they're doing right now with 6, leaving him on this bot temple so that he can actually do structural damage and then teleport into the fight whenever he's needed. Dignitas is going to do something a little bit crazy here and actually party bush a little bit and try to get a pick without 10. Hoping to gain 10 with that pick. Unfortunately, Zero plays it too safe, just sticks around the Bruiser camp. They don't get value, and that's a full free bottom temple from Zero. This is what I was talking about. This is really the end goal when you get that bottom temple going, is to actually get that done, because that usually gets you 10. They were so significantly ahead. They were 10 long before that. Get it for free, get extra soak, and get a 2-level lead, and get this Merc camp. I mean, they are basically doing everything right. It's not really Dignitas' fault at this point. I mean, it's just how it goes when you fall behind. They lost 3, they had 3 early deaths, which cost them the early game, and now they're kind of desperate to catch up.
They have to play desperate, because the thing about Sky Temple is the way the temples function, doing gradual damage. Let's take a look at this team fight here. JPL in a lot of trouble. The Twilight Dream does put damage on him, and then jumps on the boss, almost goes down. Will the stage dive be enough? It is. Bakery also in danger, but on the backside of the fight, Malfurion goes down. Athero has to blink out after confirming that kill, but M is not done. He wants to Wraith Walk in here, find some damage, but misses the Entomb, aiming for that brush that was not in Fog of War, but didn't catch the fish he was looking for.
6 is coming in. Athero is playing so risky with this positioning right now. They definitely know he's around this area. And it looks like it's not going to matter, but had someone just bush checked that, it would have been a dead Zeratul. The top pressure during all of this is immense as well, because the longer that fight goes, the better it is for them. Bakery also nearly died. It was almost 2 kills with that stage dive. And, I mean, realistically, there's nothing that JPL could have really done. I mean, perhaps if he dwarf tossed a little bit, you know, further ahead and didn't aggro the boss, he might have lived. But if he did that, then he would have died before he could have dwarf tossed anyway. So that's not really a misplay there to aggro the boss. Just unfortunate situation.
It is a tough spot to be in, getting caught like that. And now Dignitas is so far behind in experience and structures, but they might get a pick here. Melody C in danger, but Bakery ends up going down. Blink healing into those roots is going to be fatal for him. Now Snitch caught by M, and M has just been in position to catch the heroes of Dignitas that would have escaped. It seems like M is always there to catch them, and now even Mene is caught as he tries to walk away. That stage dive will confirm the kill, and
I kind of wish we had a replay of that, because I want to highlight Mene's positioning there. It's almost as if there was a miscommunication about whether they're going to try to gain value off him turning around there, because had he just simply walked as the crow flies home, I think he gets away no matter what there, after, of course, dodging the stage dive. But with how he moved there, it looked like he wanted to engage, but he was all alone, and then he just awkwardly was killed there solo. This now gives the opportunity for Zero to double Temple, and yes, Leoric will have to give this bottom one up, but if they get the entirety of the top one, it's basically a Temple and a third here, and that's incredible value. It's pushing them closer and closer to 16, and this game, you know, we talk about how this map could be snowbally sometimes. This is not the comp that I really thought was going to do it. You know, I didn't really have faith in this composition, but man, are Zero playing it well.
It's also a sign of how well Zero is playing this game that we have barely seen Zul on our screen. He's always off somewhere on the map, pressuring Dignitas, and it's made it so hard for them to respond anywhere in a timely fashion despite being ahead on globals, and that's just another pick that Dignitas cannot afford to give up. At this point, Dignitas is almost no hope. 4-level advantage. Stitch with a barrel roll over the bridge just escapes that stage dive, but it's not enough. Zero's going to be barreling towards this keep anyway.
Skeletal Mage is not really finding any use there either. It's a decently long cooldown to blow there, but this is the very rare 2 talent tier advantage here for just a few more seconds, a few more minions to die to this keep. I think Zero is going to be hard-pressed to actually eliminate this keep here with their composition. Remember, they don't have much range damage or poke. And, ooh, 6 with a nice dodge there. They should be able to get out of here no problem. Melody C is rotating down. It could be a mistake to stay here. And there's the cleanse onto Snitch. An expulsion zone as well to keep everybody out. M wants to go back in, though.
Yeah, they need to run. They need to get out of here. They've missed their opportunity. They had a 5v4 for a couple seconds, but then all of a sudden, it's time for Zul to show up, and now Dignitas is in danger. Even though Zero is fighting on the Bridge of Death, historically one of the worst places to fight, they're still taking an advantage in this fight. Of course, M trading 1-for-1 is not ideal for Zero. When you're this far ahead, you don't want 1-for-1s, but that was all thanks to an extremely clutch Void Prison from Athero. So he's really saving that fight. He made sure that nobody else on Dignitas died there, because that was an extremely dangerous situation, and buying that time with Void Prison was critical.
When you look at how this game is going, we basically saw a keep destroyed from the objective, but also from lane pressure and Merc pressure, because that's how much they've been able to accomplish. Hold that thought, as 6 is just going in. Hits the power slide afterwards. The Thorough, though, will be saved. Really nice expulsion zone here, though, making it impossible to teamfight in this location. Zero will have to back off. Looks like 6 wanted to go back in, but it's time to leave, as the Bridge of Death, as you just mentioned, is not the place you want to fight. Play it safe. You're still up a talent tier. Take these temples, leave someone to scout the boss. You can even use a scouting drone for that if you're going to split into 2. They already have Leoric down there on the bottom temple. They're going to take the Siege Giants before rotating mid. Because they have all 6 structures available to them right now, it's actually okay to let GPL have a few shots on that before rotating as 5, because they can win the game if they win one fight. And,
Zero
oh man.
Gets another pick. That is probably the 7th or 8th time that a Dignitas member has just been picked off in a position they didn't realize that Zero was able to gank, and you cannot afford to have that. At this point in the game, there's pretty much no way for Dignitas to get back in the game through the temples, and they know this. They just need to wait till 16, and their only hope, Dignitas' only hope in this game, is to get a 5-for-0 team fight and try and end. But in order to do that, they would need a fort down. They don't even have one fort down yet in this game.
This game is essentially checkmate. I mean, Dignitas at this point will need multiple team wipes in order to come back, and with the level disparity here between these two teams, it seems unlikely, especially with the lane pressure that's now in bot and mid. Bakery's been forced to stay in the bot lane this entire time as JPL tries to stormbolt a scouting drone there. The fact that he was stuck down there is due to the fact that they sent 2 Siege Giants camps down before taking all of the shots on the temples. Every single shot was fired. There are no keeps left. It's 6 structures to 0 now, as Zero and Dignitas are finally on the same talent tier for just a moment. Dignitas, with the scaling disadvantage here, will try to get a wipe as their only ticket back in this game, but it's just one of many fights they will need to win.
6 goes in here with the power slide, gets the cleanse, and he is fine. He's escaping now, but a huge Entomb forces Snitch to gust Zero away, and that is a huge trade of heroics between these two teams. Only Void Prison and Avatar, the 2 big heroics, are still available for Dignitas. Meanwhile, Zero still has Drill and Twilight Dream and Stage Dive, but 6 is not looking to force with that Stage Dive just yet. He's thinking about it though, but they want to wait for 20. There's no reason to really risk a crazy engage when you can just wait for 20 and end on the core, because Dignitas is so far from getting their own level 20.
Snitch is on the core right now, and they are going to try to commit to this fight 5v4 potentially here. They know that Snitch is over at the core, and so they actually have a numbers advantage right now. Kills would give them 20. Here comes Snitch back in, actually, right into the back line. Decent Void Prison here. They could just isolate M, actually, but Snitch is actually caught in the prison. Can't go for the gust. If he were outside of it, would have been beautiful, but unfortunately not. Here comes the Stage Dive. Thorough is gimped in this fight. He's useless. There's nothing he can do. Expulsion zone here to try to help Mene escape. Silence going down here onto JPL. He's the first to fall. They're nearly 20. M on Athero duty actually knocks him in there. He blinks away. There's the kill onto Zul. Suddenly it's a 4v4, but again, the scaling is a big issue, and the health pools of these two teams massively in favor of Zero. Mene's the next to fall. Athero survives for a long time, is looking for the pick on Gemini, but he will not get it.
Clever use of roots there by Gemini to actually protect himself. Gives himself the heal to make sure that Athero can't jump onto him. He pops the roots under himself, doesn't even try to hit that sneaky Zero tool, who's already run away. But Brightwing will go down on the other side of the map. Meanwhile, we see all of those catapults, all of those minions, and that is going to be Zero taking game number 1 against Dignitas on Sky Temple.
That is how you play, Zul. That is how you pressure lanes. Dignitas had some critical mistakes in the early game. A few kills that they gave away from isolated heroes. They got punished. And then just from that small advantage alone, Zero did everything correctly. They followed the recipe to success, the guide on Zul and lane pressure, and then just took a pretty big snowballing win there. If I have to guess, they're probably going to give the MVP to ETC for that last game because of all the stage dives, but for me, I'd actually give it to Melody C because he was rotating constantly. He was always where he needed to be, and he just did so much to guarantee that Dignitas always had lane push. They didn't have vision control. They had scouting drone too on their side to find heroes moving around, and all the lanes were pushed so hard that any movement that happened was completely known on the side of Zero.
Not only was Zero knowing about the movement, but they predicted it and ganked every time. I mean, Zero got so many picks, and that's really why that got out of control. That is one of the strengths of the Zul composition, and when you have a strong 4-man at the same time, it's extremely powerful. But Gemini, being picked here as the MVP here, did play an excellent Malfurion game, doing a really good job with those roots, but I have to say, it was the overall composition in the 4-man that really lent itself to making room for Zul and being so powerful.
Yeah, definitely true. And I'm pretty impressed with what we've seen so far from Zero. And this is just, I wouldn't call this a cheese, but this is definitely a specific strategy they had prepared for this map, potentially even just for Dignitas themselves. And I have to say, one thing I'm really thinking about here and noticing in the last matches we've seen of Dignitas play, I feel like Athero's Zeratul is either really on or really not so clutch in certain moments. And Zero actually really made sure that in every fight, either someone was on him, watching him and revealing him, or that he was just so damaged that he couldn't really be relevant in the fight. And they babysat him so well. They had scouting drone to reveal him, and the pick just lost value because they knew how to deal with him so well.
Yeah, and we never got an opportunity for those Zeratul Brightwing gank combinations to happen. It felt like every time Zul was splitting, there wasn't time for Dignitas to go hunt him down with Zeratul. Zero put so much pressure on, and that really could be used as footage of one of the best played Zul split 4-man rotate around the map. They played so well, and that was truly Zero putting on a clinic.
Yeah, it really, really was. And I'm hoping we're going to see a little bit more of that play in this tournament, especially because some teams are so good at late game that if you give them a late game, they're going to win it a lot of the time. Like Ballistics, for example, has shown some incredible late game in this tournament where they've lost the early game. They've really arguably lost a lot of drafts, but then just win with the superior late game decision making. But when you win this hard with a composition like this, it's just so hard to even have late game as a thing. It just doesn't exist if you play this correctly. We saw in summer in Sweden at the DreamHack, the Summer Global Finals, we saw so many usages of Zuls from all regions. One-off games here or there, just like this one that we just saw, where you can actually use this strategy to beat a team that's good at late game because you snowball it so early. And that's why he's kind of a cool hero in competitive. The way he plays in competitive and the way he plays in solo queue is obviously very different. You need really good coordination to make this work.
You do need good coordination, and that's what Zero had. I mean, Zero showed that they have what it takes to compete on this stage. I mean, that was a very well done game, and we need to see more of that from them to make it to the winner's bracket in the knockout rounds. I mean, they need those points, and taking them from Dignitas is a good place to start. Now, looking into the future, what does Dignitas need to change? Because I felt like they were a little uncoordinated. They got picked a lot more than I would like, and I wonder if that's a side effect of the beating that Ballistics gave them in the prior match.
I think there's a lot of factors to this, to be honest. Like, we saw the camera shot of Dignitas just moments before. I saw Snitch was yawning. Everybody looks tired. It's super late right now. I'm going to check what. It is 11:15 p.m. These players are probably still a little bit jet lagged, and they're playing against a Chinese team that's from this region. And I think that it's just important to make sure that after that last loss, they need to keep their energy up. They need to be really thinking about their drafting because obviously Athero is a great Zeratul, but how highly he prioritized it didn't get value here. I think they need to be just thinking critically about what went wrong in that last game and how to avoid it now on their map pick of Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Well, Tomb of the Spider Queen is a good place for them. Europe seems to love this place more than any other region, and I'm sure Dignitas has something special here. We saw at BlizzCon, Fnatic really succeeded on Tomb of the Spider Queen, and even Dignitas had a nice game against MVP Black here and really put the pressure on. So if they can level up that performance just a tiny bit, they definitely have an opportunity to tie up this series 1-1 and get some points for themselves.
So many members of Dignitas have so much international experience as well. They've been in situations like this before. They've been down an important series late at night on jet lag. I know that they can pull this back together. We do see Johanna is banned here. Zero probably just thinking about what we've seen from Dignitas in the past and how good Johanna's baseline Knight takes pawn is basically. That's not what it's called anymore, but that talent was basically moved to baseline of the weaker version. And it allows Johanna to push lanes and get EXP solo really, really well.
It definitely increases her importance on this map specifically because wave clear is so powerful.
I really feel like if you see this ban though, there's more to it than that. I think it means that Zero wants ETC and they want to start a warrior choke from the beginning. I think Dignitas has to be comfortable to ban ETC here, and we're going to have a crazy game if that happens. But if they don't, I think Zero is going to take it because, okay, see, this, I really like this choice because if you don't do this, you're in a situation where you have a small, weak warrior pool, and Zero knows that from the outset. This is a pretty unusual Johanna ban, but I think it's kind of a clear broadcasting of, we're going to take ETC. He's so powerful in the early game on this map. We're going to run away with the early game yet again. And you're going to have a less meta, tank, for example, possibly Muradin, who's really dropped down in priority. So I think this was a really smart choice by Dignitas. It's a tough choice, and this game is going to go down to the barrels of warriors that are meta. I mean, we'll probably see Arthas at some point in this unless we see a pretty weird game.
At the same time, though, I wonder if that ETC ban opens up Zero for picking Malfurion here. I think this is Malfurion's best map, arguably, because he contributes a lot to the wave clear. He's excellent at poking people off of that turn-in so they can't successfully enable their gems to get turned in. There's a lot of choke points for roots. So if Malfurion is not picked up by Zero, even though we saw it go relatively late in the last draft, I think Dignitas would pick it up. So Zero does opt to go for the Malfurion here, using all of their time selection for that before dipping into their time pool. And now Dignitas is in a tough spot, I would say. 2 tanks already off the board. Mouth picked up by Zero.
Sure. I think the Johanna ban was pretty slick. That's like next level drafting right there. That's something that I don't want to call it a snipe, but it's a move that you can use to really test someone's ability to draft in an unusual circumstance. Dignitas may want to think about prioritizing Tyrael here, because with Johanna and ETC removed, you can grab Tyrael, and then you can also grab a strong melee bruiser to pair with him. We're going to go Leoric first.
That's what I wanted to see, honestly. We know that Europe has played a lot of Leoric. Even Zero used it in the last game. So that means that hero has extra priority because of the way these two teams interact. And adding Leoric to your team this early means that Dignitas has basically put the ball back in Zero's court in terms of who's going to get choked out of warriors. Now there are 2 warriors already banned. Leoric picked up by Dignitas, and if Zero picks a weak frontline or neglects that in their next rotation, Dignitas can really capitalize on that with their next ban. But before they get there, they need to pick a second hero.
I think that this almost certainly will force Zero down a Tyrael path. They will have to take Tyrael, and they will have to take a melee assassin with him and try to empower him with Sanctification. So Meridian gets taken here. This is super next level. I think it must and absolutely certainly will be Tyrael here. If Zero neglects to pick Tyrael at this point, Dignitas bans it, and who knows what could happen after that, that occurs. Solo tank Artanis, Nubarak is going to sneak into the draft. I mean, who knows what could happen. This is actually something that pro gamers and fans have been talking about right now. It was for a long time, everyone's complaining there were not enough supports that were viable in competitive. Now it seems to be Warriors is the limiting factor many times. So this is the extreme version of that, where we have Warriors, 2 of them banned in first ban, then 2 Warriors picked up early on by Dignitas. I think Zero is going to use some of their bonus pool to really think about exactly which Warrior they'd like to choose here. Tychus, and I'd like to see the Tyrael in this case. They picked the Tychus first, which means they're probably just resetting the timer, and they knew they were going to pick Tychus regardless, but I'd like to see the Tyrael with this, because it allows them so many options. There's so many melee assassins on the board here. Illidan's still available, for example, Sonya, Thrall, and Tyrael is a strong and solid warrior. You run into a bit of problems, obviously, against the Leoric if you're always up on the front line, but I worry if they don't choose him, what are they going to choose?
Tyrael would be excellent, but I think Zero also could go for that Dahaka. We've seen it get a lot of value over the course of this tournament. It brings solid wave clear to help untomb the Spider Queen or potentially solo that off lane. And if you don't go for the Tyrael, you are very limited, I agree. But the Dahaka is still an option and can be powerful. But Zero will actually opt for the Gul'dan. So this is a very interesting decision. What Zero has basically done here is said, oh, you're spending 2 early picks to try and lock us out of Warriors. You're going through so much effort to build your draft around the fact that you can choke us out of Warriors. Well, now we are suddenly going to switch to locking you out of range damage. And Gul'dan is a hero that Mene plays excellently, and he loves that hero. So he would be so happy to have that on his side. But instead, Zero picks up that Gul'dan, and the ball is back in Dignitas' court. How are you going to kill us? Yeah, you have good tanks, but if you don't have damage to follow up, it's not worth anything.
Well, there's the Tyrael ban. It took them a while to decide to commit to it, but this will force Zero down the path of... I mean, when you look at meta Warriors, yes, there still is Dahaka left. We have seen him solo Warrior before and do that tanking. A lot of the time, Dahaka is used as more of a global hero. This is the smallest map in Heroes of the Storm currently, so he won't get that much value, but he may just simply be chosen based off of his value as a hero, not relative to his ability to, rotate around the map. For Zero here, they're definitely going to ban some range damage. I think Vala feels like the obvious choice here because as you mentioned, we've kind of split the tides as to banning and controlling range damage, and then the opposite for Dignitas doing it to the Warriors. And there's the Vala ban, so not surprising. And we are going to see probably some non-meta heroes come into these next 5 picks with how this has developed here.
You have to. There are no meta heroes in those 2 specific slots left. It's extremely unusual of a draft here, but now Dignitas, so if you're looking through the non-meta heroes, you're really racking your brain for what the options are for Dignitas to kill their opponents. Lunara has to come to mind.
Yeah, even Sergeant Hammer, too. I mean, something that we could see. It doesn't fit their draft too well right now and not the map, but something to keep in mind.
Sylvanas as well, always excellent on Tomb of the Spider Queen. You know, get a lot of that map control. It's just a matter of what does Dignitas actually want to use here. We did see some triple warrior early today that didn't work out so cleanly, but it's still an option. Now, Falstad is still an excellent choice. He has been seen a lot, but
sure,
really pushed towards later in this draft because of the fact, like you mentioned, small map globals are much less effective.
I think this is going to be targeted towards Snitch, which means Mene still needs a hero to play. I almost want to say we could see the big, the rare, the once often seen but no longer seen Kael'thas in this draft. I would really love to see that. You know, he can rotate very quickly. A lot of people think of Kael'thas only as a mage. But part of the reason why he was so strong, even after he was nerfed several times, is because his CC is actually quite good, and this is a map where that gets value. It's going to be Li Ming, and it looks like Dignitas is able to eke through this with 2 mages. Probably going to be Li Ming, played by Mene, and then we'll see Bakery pick up the last support there. He's got the basically everything except Malfurion is on the cards here. This is where it's going to get to be a little bit unusual, is what, you know, Zero is going to pick here. They may pick just a more solid warrior like Arthas, for example, and then pair him with a more hybrid one. It could be Dahaka, and then maybe a sturdier warrior. I don't think we're going to end up seeing Artanis as much as it would make me happy and it would be exciting to see. Chen is still available too. We haven't really been talking about him. You don't really think of Chen as a highly prioritized early on warrior that could be used. Chen can block a lot of the ability damage that we're looking here with Falstad and Li Ming. So he's definitely something to be paying close attention to going into this next and final phase for Zero.
Chen is extremely tanky and a good bruiser, but I can't help but think Zero needs some crowd control. They have no lead CC really to set up for the roots. I mean, there's Horrify eventually once Gul'dan gets level 10, but for that early game, if you want to step up to Muradin and Falstad and Li Ming, who are so threatening, you need a good health pool. To that end, Stitch is actually the choice here. Wolf sounds a little hesitant, but I have to say Dampen Magic could be huge against Li Ming and Falstad.
Yeah, definitely a different version of what I was thinking of for the Chen pick, or even potentially a Nubarak as well. The problem with Stitch is, of course, is his lack of escapes, and eventually once, well, Leoric is going to have Entomb most likely with this composition, almost 100%. Muradin with his Stormbolts is going to be able to grab stuns oftentimes in the early game. We're going to have to see a much better Stitches than what we saw from Misaka earlier this evening with Super Perfect Teams match, because I'm always worried about Stitches getting caught, getting picked, and as much as we were talking about how we might see some non-meta heroes for Dignitas for the range damage, they have solid and meta, just not as highly prioritized as normally are heroes in here with Falstad and Li Ming, and Stitches will get punished. I think they're trying to decide right now what their last pick is going to be. Like, I think they really... Here's what they did, is they tried to isolate range damage, and Dignitas took their plan and put it against them with isolating warriors. And as it turns out, there's a lot more viable range damage heroes than there are warriors that are used in competitive. So Dignitas actually just took their plan, turned it against them, and now is really winning this draft. And it's very clear that Zero doesn't really know what their plan is here. They don't have one, and it's going to be Zeratul.
I mean, figuring out the Zeratul plan seems like a reasonable solution, though, given that Dignitas does have at least 2 targets for that Zeratul to kill, plus whoever the final pick is, it will have to be a support for Dignitas, so that's at least 2, maybe 3 very squishy targets the Zeratul can kill. but Stitches is just going to be under so much pressure. It's basically because of the amount of threat that Leoric, Falstad, and Li Ming will have onto Stitches. It puts a timer on Zeratul. He's going to have a very short window at the beginning of each standoff in the team fights to actually find and exploit a weakness, and that's one of the places where Zeratul can really mess up. When you feel like you're under pressure to make something happen in a very small time frame, you end up getting sloppy, and you can make very big mistakes. So Zero needs to really focus on keeping Stitches alive while Zeratul finds those opportunities.
Yeah, it's going to be about Zeratul's efficiency and Stitch's survivability, I'd say, overall in this comp. Tychus, you know, Malfurion and Gul'dan just play themselves. You just mechanically play them, and there's nothing that complicated about them. Obviously, Gul'dan can be a big changer of team fights with his Horrify, but otherwise, in lane and in rotations, he's just simply going to be poking. Dignitas is trying to, of course, decide their support. We haven't really given much analysis on that side of things. It's really Bakery's pick. They may be considering bringing in a hero with vision and reveals, but on a small map like this, it's not as big of an issue. You know, you could theoretically go Peekaboo Brightwing. You could also, you know, grab Karazim's vision as well, but I feel like we're going to see Karazim here. Brightwing doesn't gain much global presence value here. It can, of course, polymorph Zeratul if he jumps in to prevent his retreat and kill him. I mean, there's no real perfect answer here. It's really just Bakery's choice, and whatever he decides to use here, all answers are technically correct. There's no real best pick here, in my opinion. It's really a preference at this point, which is cool because you don't normally get to see supports in this meta have the cream of the crop choice to make that last pick.
You don't get to see it often, and that's probably why Bakery's taking such a long time to figure it out here. He's like, it's like a kid in a candy shop, man. There's too many options to choose from. He cannot figure it out, going very deep in his time pool here, and now Dignitas will need to choose their support, and they will go with Rhaegar. You know, there's so many candy options in the store, but Rhaegar's like the old faithful one, you know? Just really simple, standard stuff.
They basically could have chosen anyone except, I would say, Uther, Lily, or Morales. You don't want to be picking a Morales into a Zeratul Stitches if you can help it. You're playing life on hard mode at that point if you're really trying to make the Morales work. Lily doesn't fit the comp, and Uther doesn't gain value from Divine Shield as much with his composition. So it's going to be Rhaegar. The Ancestral will get a lot of value, I feel, with both tanks, with the Leoric and, of course, the Muradin. So if they're actually playing and positioning correctly, you can get a lot of value and then get a second life bar.
Plus, Rhaegar's a little bit difficult for Zeratul to pick off. I have to say, it's hard for Zeratul to stick onto Rhaegar, even with all of those new mobility talents, but we will have to find out if Zeratul can find the picks that they will need to secure this game on Tomb of the Spider Queen. Here we go, guys. Loaded into the Tomb of the Spider Queen. We have Dignitas on the blue side, Athero playing Leoric, Bakery playing Rhaegar, Mene on Li Ming, JPL with Muradin, and Snitch on Falstad.
And on the right side of the map, Melody C on Tychus, M on Zeratul, Gemini on Malfurion, SK on Gul'dan, and 6 on Stitches.
Stitches, the legend himself. We'll have to see if 6 has those hooks. Now, both teams heading into the middle lane. Snitch with a very aggressive fly, looking for some stacks on his Gathering Storm, but not going to find any just yet. Muradin will land a stun on M, just trying to show him he is the boss. And a hook does land in a huge root! Gemini has faith in 6, and he lands the hook into the root combo, and Mene goes down before the creeps even meet.
Oh man, that is what we did not see from Misaka when we were casting that game earlier, is the faith, the commitment to CC behind those hooks, and that was a beautiful thing. And watching that gives me faith in the Stitches pick more than anything else. Thorough actually nearly goes down here as well. And just like the previous set, Zero is pushing every advance they can. They're even going to get a small turn-in of gems here off of that takedown, as Mene will now return to lane.
This is really painful for Dignitas. They're so scared now against that Stitches. Look how much damage SK just put onto JPL with that corruption. That is going to be stacking his quest talent so quickly. And this two-man lane on the bottom side has been really controlling Leoric. He's stuck on low health. JPL's trying to make something happen, misses the Stormbolt, and the helping hand will keep Gemini safe. Well done by 6.
Big root there as well by Gemini to lock 2 heroes out of chasing and pursuing damage. Though, something we haven't talked about too much is we did describe Sniper doing a totally different build on Gul'dan than what we're seeing here from SK. And SK is going to be looking for that Echoed Corruption late game stacking, and this is a good map for that. So keep an eye on every time he gets stacks, he's fastly going to be approaching, you know, stack by stack, the actual Echo. Once he hits enough stacks, he'll basically get a free recast of it going back towards himself, which is really where Gul'dan gets most of his consistent damage, especially in big stacked up team fights. And that's where he's going to be able to burn through both Leoric and Muradin.
He will be a huge asset in dealing with those tanky frontliners. And now Zero has managed to turn in quite a few of these gems. Both teams just kind of doing the wave clear dance. It's settled down a little bit from that very active initial phase, and Dignitas just needs to keep it calm and collected. They're looking for a fight here though. JPL jumps in, will land the stun onto Gul'dan. SK gets exploded here by the damage from Mene and Snitch, and that is the power of those two mages. If they find a target, if it's a squishy, it will get absolutely deleted.
Easily too, and that's what they were looking for there. Gemini's root this time not enough to save them, and uh-oh, stun's going down onto 6. Had he been a little bit further out in the lane, that would have been a takedown for sure, as you know, Stitches just can't really get out. He wants to play, but sometimes it's time to leave, and he just simply can't. 36 to 32 in gems, neither team having full turn-in potential here. They are getting close. It's a pretty even neutral lane as well. Zero actually losing in health in the bot lane right now. But besides that, it's about as dead even of a game as you could ever have.
It is dead even, especially considering that initial first blood by Zero and how aggressive they got right at the start of the game. Good job that Dignitas has managed to kind of stabilize, get their own kill, and now even out the experience. But right as we say that, Zero Tool does find the turn-in on the bottom side of the mat, and that means first Web Weavers will be going to Zero.
It's tough for Leoric to actually, you know, scout that out and also deny turn-ins there, especially when he was losing the lane a little bit. In terms of wave there, he's going to lose the XP to try to do that. Big fly in here from Snitch right into the root, and in fact he takes a ton of damage. Good turnaround there, and the hook! Threading the needle! See you later, Snitch! That fly there costs him big. Mene should be able to escape here, although as I say that, big Echoed Corruption stacks gained there while he threw that Corruption down and gained that kill as well. Another hook attempt, but it's not that Snitch possibly would have died either way with a hook there, but the fact that he took so much damage early on was an issue flying into that root.
That was just a picture-perfect team fight from Zero. They got the Web Weaver turn in, and if you get the Web Weaver turn in and immediately take a team fight, that's a risk. Because if you lose that team fight, your Web Weavers do nothing. But in the situation where you win the team fight, you get so much extra value, and you can really see how much Zero got from this first turn in, killing all of the walls and really putting Dignitas on the back foot, buying Zero a lot of map control. And that's mostly thanks to Six's excellent hooks so far this game.
And if 6 just continues to play this well and somehow convinces people that Stitches should be meta again, I think I'm going to have to retire my commentating career. I can't cast Stitches forever, but this guy is making me want to. 6, again, no escape here, but is heavily supported. In fact, baiting a little bit there on JPL. Look at the trade there. 6 has Dampen Magic. He takes some damage, but is immediately healed. A quick rotation down means a gank attempt on him is reversed and ends up forcing 3 taps here for Dignitas. In fact, JPL Hearth home, so 2 taps and a Hearth with that trade. And that's significant because that means lost EXP, that means lost time in the lanes, which means Zero is going to have level 10 for longer. Before them, they're going to have their heroics that advantage for so much longer.
And Zero is rapidly approaching the point where they can get the second turn, and they're just 10 gems off right now, and you can tell Dignitas wants to force something here. JPL jumping in onto Melody C. The helping hand does not bring Melody C over the wall. 6 was too close, and now he will manage to get us to safety. Melody C barely surviving.
That's partially due to Gemini's good defensive roots. We've seen them all game long, and I have been very impressed. I mean, Gemini's been one of my favorite Chinese supports really since the old days back in spring. He's just such a great player. When he needs to turn on the aggression with his CCA, use it for that. But when it comes to defense, I mean, just these roots back to back to back to basically lock down multiple Dignitas members so they can't pursue the chase. This obviously was a positive exchange for Dignitas. It will give them their web weavers. They won't be able to do much damage with this, but they will be able to kind of camp on them and sit on them and squat for 10, basically. Ooh, Gorge going down here. Looks like Leoric died off screen, but 6 goes for the kill here. Big silence coming down, but Bakery should be able to go back into wolf form and get out.
Meanwhile, on the bottom side of the map, Athero actually died to Zeratul and Tychus ganking him there, and that's not what Dignitas wanted. They really needed level 10 here. Of course, they did get some value from that web weaver turn in, like Wolf said, buying some time and getting them level 10 eventually, but mostly it slows down the momentum Zero had. That's what Dignitas needed. They needed a breather. If Zero had gotten the turn in before Dignitas, then suddenly they have the level 10 advantage and the web weaver's pushing, and that's devastating. But as I'm talking about that, 6 finds another hook on Athero after he misses an Entomb. And Entomb, we didn't really mention, but it's one of the best tools at dealing with Stitches. He has no way to escape from that, and we will see that be extremely impactful throughout the game.
Yeah, there's not much Malfury can do except drop a heal to save him either. Really the only hero that has a good escape out of this. Hold that thought. 6 is going to grab this Gorge hook again. There's the root follow-up, and that is a dead Bakery. Getting the kill onto Rhaegar. Some of the positioning we're seeing here for Dignitas has getting punished really hard by these hooks. Void Prison being used here to try to allow this escape. There's the defensive gust as well. So multiple heroics being used here. A very positive trade. Oh my god! M! Getting the kill onto Li Ming as well. I was going to say just simply a positive trade there, but actually getting that kill so casually as well. Just like, he didn't even try to get an auto off or anything. He's like, oh, all I need is the Singularity Spike, and I'll see you in the Hall of Storms. This coordination that we are seeing from Zero in this best of 2 is, I've never seen them play this tight before. It's like everything they're doing is connected.
This looks like, if you told me Zero was a team who plays only Stitches every day in Team League, I would believe you in their practices. We've not seen very much Stitches before, but he is doing an amazing job here. Oh my gosh, it seems like he has all the calcs in the world. The hooks are on fire, dodging the Entombs, and it's not easy to dodge stuff when your Stitches big.
Yeah, 6 is like, is probably watch this VOD and say, Wolf says Stitches has no escapes. Yeah, he does. He's got right click, move command. And the jukes are real. The mastery we're seeing from 6's Stitches here is out of control, especially that early pick, that threading the needle hook on Snitch. From that point on, it was sold, and it's just been, this whole game has been a Stitches highlight reel.
It has been, and he's even been using Helping Hand to get his allies out of danger, and that's something that it takes a little getting used to. Not only seeing it, but as a player, remembering that technique you have in your arsenal. It's an extra factor you always have to consider, and it's just something that I like to see out of a Stitches. Not many of them are even utilizing that effectively.
6 has shown us such aggressive warrior play today as well. Just really showing his personality as a player, and I would expect to see more from him in this tournament of perhaps some niche picks. Like, after watching this, he's the type of player who might pull out the Artanis. He might pull out the Anubarak. You know, you really never know when you're dealing with a player like this until he starts showing his heroes how big his hero pool really is, you know, how deep it actually goes. So, Dignitas does have enough gems for turn-ins, but without 13, it's going to be difficult to attempt them. They are very, very close to that. A few more minion kills will actually get them that 13. There it is. They can finally start pressuring for that. They do not want to, you know, get wiped as they are kind of overkill at carrying their gems right now. 6 finally gets caught here in an Entomb.
and the gust sends the rest of Zero away, but will it be enough? The cleanse comes out just in time to get 6 out of there. Now cleanse has to be used on JPL, but that laser drill is absolutely shredding him, taking so much damage there while Bakery was in the Void Prison, but Dig wants to re-engage here. The Twilight Dream will stop all of that momentum. Athera going down below 1% HP, narrowly escaping that grenade thrown by Melody C, and now Dignitas has to retreat here. They will not be able to successfully get the turn-in they were looking for.
Yeah, that was incredible that Stitches survived that. That Six was able to live through that. You saw the combo of Li Ming slam into him and also the disintegrate, and it just showcases Dampen Magic. Like, if I ever had to have a talent GIF to show Dampen Magic, that would be it. Melody C, I'm not sure if he'll be so lucky getting out of this one. Very, very low here. Stitch is going to fly in right now. Big damage being put off by SK, though. There's a Vorpal Blade in onto Stitch. And it's now a 5v4. Six gets the Gorge as well. Looks like Zeratul is going to go down. SK is in trouble. Looks like it's going to actually, at the end of all things, end up being a 2-for-2 trade. Very well done by Dignitas when things went wrong.
Okay, there was a little bit of miscommunication there, maybe. Oh, nice pickup on Athero there. Managed to die to that Tychus on his way out with the Wraithwalk. But like I was saying, the Zeratul actually was threatening the backline while Snitches walked away with Gorge, which is a risk when you're playing that style. But I have to give credit to Six with that helping hand, actually, onto Melody C. Yanking him out of the Entomb as it was cast was beautiful. Very well done there. Absolutely essential for their successful team fight. And Six has just been dominating, and as much as I've been talking about how it's the Stitches show right now for Six, this is really their opportunity to make something happen. Of course, Stitches is good in the late game, and this 16 spike is amazing for Stitches. So I'd like to see them get a keep here and keep this momentum moving forward, because if Dignitas gets to the hyper late game, I think they will not fail to actually turn it around at level 20. Murden, Leoric, both amazing post 20. That epic mount is just too valuable. So I feel like Zero needs to get stuff done here in this timing window where they have the 16 talent tier advantage.
I would completely agree. And part of the onus on this for Zero is going to be on SK maximizing his Fell Strike's damage, his corruptions to actually poke these structures down. Obviously, Tychus can do some extra range damage as well. These two ranged assassins will look to do the majority of the damage, while Six just kind of tries to get picks and force Dignitas to play. One of the scariest things about Stitches is not actually him hitting the hooks, it's the fact that he has hook in general. The fact that he has this pulling ability will allow him to just simply kill heroes or force them to misposition themselves. So, pretty exciting to see this non-meta hero. As we said before in the draft, we're going to see a non-meta hero here come into play, and the way Six is playing it makes it look like he's almost a must-pick. I mean, just really good coordination with him and his team. And oh my god.
Thero just barely estimating that range on Entomb yet again. Melody C narrowly escapes. JPL wanted to go over the top side of that little wall and maybe find Melody C, but he realized he just was not close enough. And that is a good escape from Zero. Now, JPL was in the Stitches. Six did get that Gorge, but it's not going to be enough. Murden is not the target you are looking for that blow-up comp. We've seen time and time again when Gorges go on Murdens, it tends to work out pretty badly.
It's a positive net in heroic trades, though, because JPL actually used his avatar right afterwards. We're going to see another Vorpal Blade attempted kill here onto Snitch. Shields go down, though, and it is not going to be the confirmed kill. Making this a nice move here for Dignitas. They get the kill, and with the lead that Zero had, it's a pretty long death timer here. 34 more seconds. That's going to be 20% less on the defense of these web weavers as they spawn.
So it looks bad here for Dignitas, all three of these forts alive, but what that means is there's a lot of experience to be had by this web weaver turn-in. Because it is 15 minutes into the game, these are going to be stronger web weavers than earlier, and if Dignitas can get 2 or even 3 of these forts, it will really get them to the point they need to be in order to be even to level 20. So they're really looking to get at least 2 forts here on this push in order to match Zero in the race to level 20.
Yeah, definitely that's the key here. Sometimes you just have this these forts that almost feel like they gain interest over time as they survive, so it can be a problem for Zero, in fact. Oh, this is a nice Entomb actually completely isolating Six, and he will likely go down, although there's the heals on him again. No way! Is he going to survive here? In fact, he will. And already 2 kills here, make it 3 and 6 with his 4, crazy teammates protecting him every way. Survives yet another dive on. I harped and I preached in our draft screen. Stitches is the one who's going to get picked off. He's the one who's going to be killed and eliminated. But with the coordination that we're seeing from this 5-man roster, he just simply will never die. It's not that he has an escape, it's just that his team supports him well, his positioning is good, and even when we see amazing entombs like Athero just dropped, he survives and turns the fight around because so many cooldowns are wasted on him. He has dampen magic, he survives a lot of that ability power damage, and he's just a big tank. He's a damaged battery, while the rest of the team is doing damage to valuable targets.
Dignitas really got overextended there trying to kill the Stitches. Just such a huge health pool, and maybe being forced onto the Falstad Li Ming, which are not their primary damage dealers together. Maybe, like in most situations, those aren't the combination they pick, and that miscalculation really caused them to funnel in towards that Twilight Dream, which was so impactful from Zero. And now they have gotten level 20. That power spike will be huge as they pick up their Storm talents, and they need to make something happen here. They have a full level and a little bit extra before Dignitas finds their own.
Well, the 20 choices here for Zero are very Chinese in nature with the bolts. 6 with Bolt plus Gorge can do a lot of crazy playmaking. You can also bolt into a fight and Gorge somebody to completely remove them. But seeing Bolt on Malfurion instead of Storm Shield means he's going to lose shields, but he will be able to potentially bolt into a big silence. As you see, this engage has started. M is all in. He was super far in, and Dignitas cannot commit to the fight, but it's an insanely positive trade here for Zero. And they have this strong bot push. Looks like they're just going to try to force keep here. A level and a half ahead with the Draken being placed. There's no way Dignitas saves this. They just simply have to let it go, and I think that's the only choice that they can make.
Given how easily Dignitas gave that up and the fact that Gust was already down, I wonder if Zero could have held on to the laser drill, gone back, gotten the turn in, and then looked to end the game utilizing that Tychus laser drill, but that won't be available if they decide to push in the next minute. But if they wait, Dignitas will suddenly be level 20, so Zero has to decide what they want to do, and it looks like they have their eyes on this middle keep.
Yeah, they want to push the Web Weavers with keeps down. They easily could have just gone for a free turn-in, but because they don't need to right now, they're just trying to choke Dignitas out, even zoning them out of a little bit of experience here with this positioning. As Dignitas starts to gain a little bit of ground here on the defensive side, they will go ahead and go for this turn-in. And Dignitas is going to just have to defend it here and look for 20. They have, I'd say medium-ish wave clear, like with Leoric and Falstad. Li Ming's not the worst in the world. With the wave clear they have, it's not going to be a game-ending Web Weaver push unless they get picked. It looks like they want to take the fight 2-0 beforehand, though. They're nearly at 20, and they're grouping up. This is going to be possibly the fight that determines the game here.
I really like this decision from Dignitas to fight Zero outside of their own base. They're looking for a flank. They might have found Gemini, but instead the Entomb goes on 6 and Melody C. I don't know if that's the target you want. The Gust has to be used immediately, and Athero and Stitch are still dying to M and C moving, and then Gemini comes in with a huge Twilight Dream. Athero goes down. Snitch barely escapes, and the hook does not land.
If that hook lands, that's probably
Snitch
game.
went down.
Yep, Snitch did die, in fact, so this is 2 dead. And this actually, with Snitch's death here, this very likely will be game. His Gust was gone anyways, but, I mean, with him not being here, that's a lot of lost damage. And here comes the blow-up and the fear. JPL is dead, and I think Dignitas is dead with him, as this push will likely end again. Mene trying to do what he can from afar. He went tall Rajas to try to get some extra damage here desperately. There's the blow-up on Bakery as well. Zero will just right-click the core, and incredible coordination from this team. 6 showing the depth of his hero pool in this Warrior chokeout that Bakery and Dignitas put against them. Very impressive 2-0 victory here from Zero against a tough opponent. 2 points well earned.
Zero was absolutely monstrous in that site. They demonstrated that they really can level up, and this is what we expect out of the Chinese teams on home turf. They looked so comfortable, so coordinated. They pushed every advantage to the very limit.
So, I mean, really, when you look at the coordination that you see with the Stitches play like that, the saves, Gemini's roots, it's, I would say for me, Six was the MVP, but it's hard to put it all on him because the team worked together so well to ensure his survival and so many big attempts by Dignitas to pick him off. And it's a wise choice to try to pick off Stitches. As mentioned, he has no escapes. There he is.
Ooh.
Look at that. Oh, look at that number in the middle. 0 deaths on the Stitches.
0 deaths on Stitches.
60k tanked.
Yeah, against Leoric, 2 no deaths. Not one time did he miscalculate dying to the Entomb. Every time he got entombed, it was like, oh, I'm actually just baiting, and you guys are the ones about to lose this team fight. That is insane Stitches play from Six, and not only was Six impressive on the Stitches, I'll give him that. He hit a lot of hooks. He had excellent positioning. He really controlled himself in that game, had a lot of excellent play, but he even had the backing of his team, and that's something that not every Stitches have. Not every time a Stitches is picked does the team have faith and believe in them, and that really does separate the best teams who can actually pick Stitches from the ones who can't.
I mean, if you look at these two drafts, almost anyone would predict a much closer game than 16-4 dominant control. One of the scary things about watching Zero play, to me, the coordination reminds me of Korean teams, but their ability to take leads and capitalize on them almost feels unparalleled in this tournament. In both those games we saw, they took advantages and made the most efficient choice every time. Sometimes with slight risk, but it seemed like they always got positive exchanges every single time they got a takedown or they got an objective. It was exactly the most efficient way they could capitalize on that moment.
And not only did they capitalize on their opponent's mistakes, but they mitigated a lot of their own losses when they made a mistake. And now we can see the updated group stage point standing. Guys, MVP Black in the lead with 9 total points, followed up closely by Ballistics and Miracle at 7 and 6, but Zero not to be forgotten, locking in that 4th place spot so far with 6 points as well. Now, the teams in 5th through 8th, Dignitas, E-Star, SPT, and AA, really need to pick up some more points tomorrow in Day 3's matches to be able to look at that winner's bracket of the knockout stage.
Yeah, key that Dignitas has a better score than SPT and E-Star down there at the bottom as well, so there's still faith, or, hope, I guess is the word for this, for the West. And the Korean teams remain dominant, although Miracle does drop down there to 3rd place. So tomorrow's matches, our final 4 best of 2s, will be between E-Star, Miracle, E-Star, and Ballistics. SPT will face off against Dignitas, and then Miracle will face off against Dignitas as well. So a great match.
Dignitas has some amazing opportunities to make up spots on the point breakdown there. If you look at those 2 matchups, those are 2 excellent teams to take points from. So if they can find wins in those last 2 matches tomorrow, we could see Dignitas potentially slide in to that 3rd, 4th slot.
That's right. So guys, tomorrow is the final day of round robins. I know I've been really pushing this idea of tell your friends, this tournament is the best Heroes of the Storm tournament we've ever had, but please do spread the word. Get on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit. Tell people about this tournament, get discussing it, and show up tomorrow to find out which teams are going to the winner's match in the Water Cube. We'll see you then.